My hair is crazy frizzy today, but you won't be seeing me for very long, so just ignore that for a minute. But I'm going to show you how to repress a powder makeup product, whether it's a face powder, a bronzer, blush, eyeshadow, highlighter, any powder makeup product that has either been used so much that there's just a ring around the edge of the pan, or if you dropped it and it's shattered, or if when you're traveling it's broken somehow. I'll show you how to repress it back together into the center of the pan so that you can easily use it. Sometimes when you just have that ring around the edge, you're not getting an even application on your brush, so it really helps with those kinds of situations. But also if you're panning a product, it's much easier to use it up if it's back into the center instead of just around the edges. So I have my Tarte Park Avenue Princess bronzer here. I actually just finished repressing this. I did film that, so I will insert that here in just a second, but this is what my bronzer looks like after it's been repressed back into the center. I think it is much easier to use now. I've used it today, and the texture's the same, the consistency's the same. It's identical to what it was before, except then it was in 3 different pieces and now it's back into the center and 1,000 times easier to use. I actually have a video that I filmed, it was probably about 2-ish years ago that I filmed that other video. It's the exact same technique that I'm using now, but I was repressing a face powder then and the quality is not the best back then, but I'll go ahead and insert it down in the description box for you in case you wanted to go back and look at a couple different examples of how to repress a powder or powder product. I will also include my Instagram down in the description box because I have probably, I don't know, there's probably 15 photos of me repressing different types of products. You can kind of take a peek of what I've repressed over the past 2 to 3 years, and that's it. So I really do appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. So here's what we need. Obviously, you're going to need the product that you're going to be repressing. You're going to need something to crush it up with. I have a couple different examples here. I have a bobby pin that I stretched out that I've used before. It's really easy to crush up powders with that. Or I also have these little things that came in a face mask, and these are like a little miniature scooper spoon thing, but they come in really handy. I've been using those for a while now, but you can essentially use anything to crush up the powder, like the back of a pen cap even. I mean, get creative, a spoon, anything. Just something that'll help crush up the powder. I have some Q-tips here, and these are actually the precision Q-tips that are a little bit more pointed at the ends. They just come to a tapered tip, but you can use regular ones. They're an optional item. They're really just there in case you add too much alcohol or if you need to clean off your item that you're repressing. I also have some alcohol here. This one is 70% isopropyl alcohol. If you can find 90% or higher, go with that one, but I'm just using 70%. The higher alcohol percentage that you can pick up just makes it dry a little bit quicker and evaporate faster, but 70% works just fine. And I also have some paper towels back here that I cut up. I just cut up 2 small paper towels in half, and then I also have something to push the product back into the pan. You can use anything that will actually fit into your pan here. So my pan is a circular pan, but I don't need something that large because I don't have a ton of powder in here. So I'm probably going to go with either this Milani shadow because it's circular, or I could go with, you know, some of my other eyeshadows I brought out here. This thing right here, let me show you. If you don't have a pan that you're repressing stuff back into, like if it's in a palette or something and you can't easily repress it back in there, you can sometimes find something like this on eBay. These are just those little small miniature metal pans that are kind of like a MAC shadow pan, but when you purchase these, sometimes they'll throw in a little repressor device like this. So we'll just see what I reach for at the end and how much product I have in here. So let me move this stuff out of the way and we'll get to repressing. The first thing that you need to do if your pan is a little bit dirty or if it has a little bit of this residue over here is to clean it out. So I'm just going to wipe off the top of the mirror up here toss the powder pieces up to the mirror and then clean out my pan really fast. My next step is obviously going to be to put the powder back down into the pan, and I'll start to crush it up. Obviously, if you didn't have to clean the pan, then you can just start with this step. Now I'm going to take this little tool here and I'm going to start to crush it up. If you have powder that's still along the edge of the pan, try and push it into the center as you crush it up. Make sure whatever you're using is clean. That is key. I made sure to wash this little miniature utensil before starting this. I washed both of them. You don't have to crush it up super fine to begin with. It'd be way too hard and it would take way too long. Just get it all kind of broken up and pushed into the center for the most part. Now I'm going to start to crush this up into a little bit finer of a powder. Depending on how much product that you have will kind of let you know how long it'll take. Usually it doesn't take very long. This just makes the mixing process with the alcohol a little bit quicker. Again, once I'm finished, I just scoot everything back into the center as much as I can. Something that I like to do just to kind of contain the alcohol for the first couple drops is to make a little pile like I did right here. And then I just make a little bit of a hole so I can kind of, eyeball where I need to pour the alcohol. So this is where the Q-tips might come in handy because I'm going to pour in the isopropyl alcohol right now. I'm just going to start by adding in a couple drops at a time. You can always add more in, but it's a little bit more difficult to remove it out. And then I just kind of push the product from the sides into the center so it absorbs up the alcohol. Let's pretend like you added in a little bit too much. You can take a Q-tip and just dip it into the area where there's no product and there's just the alcohol, and you can kind of just dip out some of that excess alcohol out of there like that. Or you can actually just let it sit for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and the alcohol will kind of evaporate up off of the product and you can resume back to what you were doing. So I'm just mixing this carefully. The texture that you want is somewhere in between creamy peanut butter and Greek yogurt. That's the texture that you kind of want to get to. So I'm almost to the right texture here. I think I'm going to add in just a drop or two more. That's pretty close to the right texture though. The right consistency, I mean. I like my powders to be back into the center, and to do that you really have to get messy. So this next part is a little bit optional, depends on how neat you want your product at the end. But what I do is I wash my hands and then I'm going to be using my fingers. And like I said, it's going to get a little bit messy, but if you have clean hands, it won't be a big deal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get everything right back into the center like I was talking about. So I just washed my hands. I'm going to scoop the product that's around the edge of the pan with my finger so the pan is clean around the edges. You can do this with a Q-tip, but it's 1,000 times faster to just do it with your fingers, I think. Because if you have everything back into the center, it'll be 1,000 times easier to have a perfect little repressed pan when you're finished. The problem that you have when you do this with a Q-tip is that sometimes you'll get the little fuzzies off of the Q-tip in the product. So I just say use your fingers and have fun with it. So I want it to be scooted in just a little bit more so it's right smack dab in the center. If you don't care about your pan being pretty when you're done, then you don't have to do this step. Just kind of squish it back into the center with whatever tool you're using. So now you're gonna take your paper towels. You can use tissues, toilet paper, paper towels, anything really. So I take the paper towel, I fold it in half, and then with your first pressing, I would fold it in half again. So I folded this in half twice. Now you're gonna set this right over the top of it. And I'm gonna go with this Milani shadow just because it's a larger circle, and I'm going to put it directly over the product. And this first pressing, you're just gonna be extremely gentle and just, you know, you're gonna put a little bit of pressure, but you're not gonna smash it in the pan as hard as you can. But be careful when you release it back up. Now I'm going to take another one, fold it in half, and I'm just going to fold it once this time, go right over the top. Now I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on this one, hold it down for maybe 10 seconds. You're going to keep pressing down into the product until you don't have the alcohol coming through anymore. See how you can still see the alcohol coming through? Since this is a smaller circle, I'm going to get a smaller sized item. Now you can start putting some force down into the pan as you press it. Now this should be the last pressing that I need to do, and just press as hard as I can for this last one. And there's barely anything. So then you're left with this. So what I like to do, I like to take one of my Q-tips, and if you have any product around the edge like that, you can go through and just clean off that little bit right there, the little Q-tip. I cleaned the edge right over here out with this Q-tip right here. When I am all the way finished, what I like to do, I like to take a little Q-tip and put it along the edge so I have a little gap so that the alcohol can evaporate overnight. I would highly suggest doing this at nighttime and just letting it dry overnight, and when you wake up, your powder will be perfectly fine and ready to use in the morning. I'll try and include a clip of what this powder looks like after it is dried throughout the night. Here is my powder, you know, after I've used it once. It works beautifully. It feels identical to how it did before, but it's not in 85 pieces anymore, and it's just back into the center, and it'll be finished off much sooner than it would have before. So that's everything that I wanted to show you guys. If you try this out, let me know, and that's it. So I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.